Everyone. Council just met in closed session. I will now ask the clerk to read the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to all of council. Council met in closed session at 6 o'clock and passed a motion to go into closed session. Council received information respecting a matter pertaining to a fire services automatic aid agreement. Council also received information on a tax sale matter and provided confidential direction to staff on that matter. And a procedural vote was taken to adopt previous closed session minutes.
Thank you. I'll now ask everyone to please stand for the national anthem. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather as the traditional territory of the Anishinaabes and the Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'll be declaring a conflict of interest on Drainage Staff Report DSR 012-2023 because I'm a contracted employee of the petitioner and the corresponding bylaw as well.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Please note that these meeting proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded, and made available through the Township website and YouTube.com. I just wanted to take this opportunity to note that Township Council participated in a joint meeting with the Council of the City of Port Colborne on October 16th, and where the two councils approved entering into a memorandum of understanding establishing a framework for both communities to consider and explore shared services agreements that could result in improved service delivery, cost savings, and increased efficiencies for both municipalities. The meetings of that meeting are included in tonight's agenda and will be adopted later in the meeting. Further, we anticipate staff will be returning to future meetings with more information as well as outlining opportunities to collaborate regarding potential shared service agreements. This Saturday, I had the pleasure of participating in the first ever Quad Niagara Breast Cancer ATV ride. It started here in Wainfleet and ventured into Dunnville and back, and they raised $22,800. November 5th to the 11th is National Veterans Week. We hope you can join us on the 11th for our 10th annual Remembrance Day ceremony. Regional budget meetings are scheduled over the next couple of weeks. Township budget meetings will begin this month. Check our website calendar for updates. The NPCA board meets Friday, November 17th at 9 a.m. The Transit Commission meets Tuesday, November 21st at 3 p.m. And our next regular meeting of council is later that evening at 7 p.m. Are there any announcements or remarks from members of council? Okay, we're moving on to the adoption of the previous council minutes. Are there any comments or corrections for the draft minutes from the regular meeting of council held October 10th, 2023, and the special joint meeting of council held October 16th, 2023? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held October 10th, 2023, and the special joint meeting of council held October 16th, 2023, be adopted as circulated. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Gilmore? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to the public meeting, we have Drainage Staff Report DSR 012-2023. 2023 respecting the Newhouse Drain Engineering Report for consideration. I'll ask our Drainage Superintendent, Mr. Jameson, to provide us a brief overview of this report.
Great. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of Council. So Drainage Staff Report 12 is for the consideration of the Newhouse Drain, which is a petition drain here in the township. So throughout the process of the Drainage Act, we've had quite a few regulated meetings, as well as quite a few on top of that with the involved public. So the recommendation of this report is to proceed and to move towards the Court of Revision. So at this time, I'd like to invite the engineer, Brandon Widner, to provide a brief discussion on the drain itself.
So good evening, everybody. Tonight we have a new drain for the township, drain under Section 4. It's called the Newhouse Drain. The map up there on the screen encompasses the watershed. It's mainly in the area of Highway 3 and I believe Perry and Wills Road. So we received a request from, in this case, the Newhouses. They have a greenhouse facility on the south side of the road. They were looking to secure an outlet for that road, as well as the township in this report is going to secure an outlet for the road going to the south. So we have a very small drain here. It's open ditch. Essentially starts at the Big Forks drain, comes up, crosses Highway 3 with a small portion down Highway 3. Total project cost is about $32,000 and it's about 430 meters long. It's all open ditch work. There's a culvert underneath Highway 3, which through discussions with the MTO will be replaced by them, not through this report, but it does dictate the depth that has to be replaced to. So there's an existing 4-foot CSP that crosses the road. Through our investigation, it's in what I would call very poor condition, but the MTO will replace it at a later date. It's their infrastructure, they have that opportunity. So other than that, you'll see the costs are broken down in the cost estimate, and there's some allowances provided to the two owners on the north side of the road, the Lamers and the Udermans. Most of the work is on Mr. Lamer's property, as well as some being done from the road allowance. The costs are broke down, as you see on page 8 or Schedule C. A number of properties are assessed benefit, but the main contributor on this project, again, is the MTO with Highway 3. But we're here tonight to answer any questions regarding the design components of this drain. But it is an open ditch. So it's a very economical project. We have a small cost. Much of the work is, again, regarding the highway. And it was essentially to secure an outlet for the south side lands to go across the highway and to ensure that outlet continues to function. There's an existing, let's say, private drain there now. So we're just going to take that and improve it, and that's about it. You can see on the right of the screen there's a profile that shows how much fall there is and how much material is coming out if you move the screen over to the right. So this is the profile for the right. That's the profile that shows the excavation. So anything that's shaded in that profile is essentially excavation. So you'll see that's the material coming out. When we did have the discussions on this drain, or I guess the public meetings, we did reduce the amount of work in Mr. Lamer's property to try to avoid and minimize the damage. That property is agricultural, but where the work is happening is essentially his yard. So we've tried to lessen the work down there. The rest of the drain work will be completed from the highway. But that essentially sums it up. But I'm happy to answer any questions we might have on this tonight.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none? Okay. Are there any members of the public who wishes to speak or provide any comment? Okay, you can come up to the podium and then please state your name and spell your surname and state your address for the record.
Hi, I'm Ann Whiteford, W-H-I-T-E-F-O-R-D, right on Highway 3, 43030 Highway 3. I just have a couple comments.
Excuse me, Ann, can you just repeat that for the clerk? She just.
I'm sorry. The last name, Whiteford, 43030. I don't have too much objection to this. I don't know why we're doing it when this water is going to go into the main ditch, and the main ditch hasn't been done since the 80s. So I'm not sure why we're wasting money on this little ditch instead of doing the big one, which is full of trees. It goes up to the bridge on Perry Road when it's bad. Like, it goes right up to the bottom of the bridge. So obviously the water's not going anywhere. Our land is flooded quite a bit when it's bad. And I see we're paying quite a bit when we have the other ditch goes right through our property. I don't know that they allowed for that. And I do see that there's a name missing on this thing, but maybe I'll talk to him after about that. But that was my concern. I don't know why we're doing it when we're not doing the big ditch.
Thank you, Ms. Wyford. Is there any other members of the public who wish to speak?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Lammers. I own the property where this ditch is going to be cleared out. And although I don't want to stand in the way.
Excuse me, Mr. Lammers, can you just state the address for the clerk?
Okay, 42966 Highway 3, north side of the highway. I don't know if you can bring that up a little bit, maybe. And you can see where there's a little bit of a dark outline where the drain is marked off there. My property is to the east. You can see H. Lammers on that 10.2 hectares. Right there, the ditch, all that property of mine that drains to the Big Forks Creek, everybody on the north side benefits from the fact that it just runs back there. And so I've been living in that property for 45 years and never have experienced any problem with the drainage in that ditch. I just want to make a couple of comments. I think it's for me, it's kind of hard to understand why this ditch is all of a sudden the main drain for all the property on the south side of the road when most of the issue is near Wills and Perry Road, and there would be a very easy access for the water to get to Big Forks Creek by going down the ditch on Perry Road. There needs to be just one culvert put under the highway there, and that would drain Wills Road and all the properties that have been built up there, the houses and the new house greenhouses that now dispel water into the ditch. That could go straight down Perry Road instead of coming across the highway and going under a culvert and then going along my property. That's one thing that I find a little bit hard to understand. The second thing is just the way they figured out the benefit and associate the cost of this project. Now, all the work that's going to be done, other than what's along the highway there, is on my property. Yet I've experienced no drainage problems ever, and yet I've been assessed a cost of $3,244, the second highest assessment of this whole thing. The New House Onions is just a little higher than that at $4,000, and that's on the south side. That's all the property that's draining down this ditch where the concern is. And so I'm just questioning how that assessment has been figured out because it's supposed to be by benefit. I don't understand how I'm getting benefited by this drain. I think the exact opposite is happening. I should be compensated for the machines coming on and making a mess of my property. But I've been thankfully I've been given some assurances that it's going to be done properly and cleaned up and taken care of. So I'm comfortable with that. But the assessment is a big question mark for me. I know I'm getting some grants from the government to cover some of it because of farmland, and also some of it for damage to the property. However, for future jobs, I just wonder if there's some way that it could be more of a fair assessment. I don't understand the process by which this is done. I know that all the work is being done on my property, but the benefit is not to me. Yet I'm the second highest a payer on this assessment. So I don't know if anybody can speak to that at all, but those are the two comments I just wanted to make tonight. And thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Mr. Lammers. Is there any other members of the public that wish to speak?
Good evening, Council. Harry Flagg, address 43047 Highway 3. On the south property, quite a ways down the road. My only concern was just really brought up tonight when they said that the MTO wasn't going to do their drain until it was ready for them. So I don't know how fixing everything on both sides is going to affect everything if the MTO doesn't do theirs at the same time. If the culvert underneath Highway 3 needs to be replaced, maybe it should be done then if it needs to be done. And yeah, that was one of my only concerns. I know the water's got to go someplace, and I'm out on Highway 3 and I don't have any water in my property, and I'm up pretty high on the hill, so I'm thinking my water's running off as it is. But again, just my concerns about the culvert. If it's not going to get done under the highway, it seems kind of mute to do everything else. Thank you.
Is there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll now turn it back to the engineer, provide comment. Or drainage superintendent, whichever wishes to do it first.
Well, I guess we'll kind of go question by question here. So, Mrs. Whiteford was up first. We'll start with her. I guess can we move over to her property? She's on the north side of the road. So the existing drain schematic, just so everyone's aware, is Highway 3 is ditched, essentially, as everyone said, to the intersection of Perry or Wills. All the water drains to there. Currently, there's a culvert that crosses on an angle from the, let's call it the northwest side of the road, and it comes into this drain. So, you know, as we're aware, I know we could have dug a ditch down Perry Road. That was indicated as well. That would require changing the schematic of drainage, which has been created by the MTO. And the cost of doing a new road culvert underneath Highway 3 is more money than this entire project that's being proposed. When you look at Perry Road, there's quite a crown in it, hence that's why the watershed's there. I understand Mrs. Whiteford does have the big forks drain in her backyard, but this is the area that's contributing. So the front of her property drains towards Highway 3, the rear of it, yeah, drains towards Big Forks Drain. The reason we're not doing Big Forks Drain under this project is that this drainage isn't being affected by Big Forks. So there's a decent amount of fall, approximately 3 meters in Mr. Lamer's property of fall. So it would, for this drainage schematic to be affected by Big Forks would have to be very flooded. Not against doing work on Big Forks, and maybe that project will come at one time, but for the scope of what we're looking here tonight, Big Forks doesn't really have a huge effect on it. It's the outlet for this drain. I'm sure it needs work, but this drain will function adequately without improvements to it. So hopefully that summarizes Mrs. Whiteford's comments. I guess we'll just jump to Mr. Flagg's. He's in the watershed that we've determined. Again, the MTO has ditched this road. This property, I know we had, when we had the public meeting, there was a couple other neighboring landowners there. I understand there's some flooding issues in that area. But again, the existing schematic of the MTO road is all that water is headed towards Wills. So indirectly, yeah, the work doesn't really affect him per se, but he's in the catchment area. Regarding the MTO road culvert, that culvert won't be replaced till this work's done. So currently the issue with the MTO road culvert is they don't have an outlet for their water either. So until this drain's established, then they can go in and relower that culvert. So at the road, we're going to be gaining about a foot of depth with the excavation. That will allow them then to go in and change the culvert. We don't need the existing culvert to be deeper, though I'm sure they will deepen it. But the drain itself can't function without some excavation on the Uderman and Lamers properties. So most of the problem on this whole drain with an outlet is in the first 100 meters of Mr. Lamers' property. That's where the excavation needs to take place. Now, when you go to Mr. Lamers, I know you had some comments regarding the direction of the drain. Hopefully I clarified that. This is an existing drain schematic. Yes, it's not municipal infrastructure, but this drain's established, it's been there, this is where everything's flowing. The cheapest alternative from our end is always just to improve what you have instead of redirecting. Not against putting a drain down Perry Road, but I could tell you it will be much more than $32,000. That would require an extensive excavation. It would probably have to be piped. It's much more entailed. We try to keep these projects as economical as possible. Regarding his other comments with the assessment, I can dive into that some, but tonight's meeting isn't for assessments. This is a consideration meeting for design. You know, I can quickly explain we have two ways of doing it, benefit and outlet. And benefit, as defined on the Act, is better control of surface and subsurface water. So when a landowner says they have no benefit, look at that definition. Yeah, the upstream owners, which essentially is everyone else on this drain, is assessed outlet. Outlet's basically calculated by land area. It's what you contribute to the drain. So, and I know when you're looking at everyone's assessments, you can't forget the MTO is the largest payer by far. They get the biggest benefit to getting the work done, but they also have one of the largest outlet components. So you got to look at the whole picture, but when there is assessment questions, there is another meeting scheduled. Mark will have the date, or you guys as well. We're happy to answer questions of assessments for that meeting and help explain how things are calculated. We have a method of doing it, and I can explain that to you much easier on a one-on-one basis. But we'll touch that at the quarter revision, because that's usually where we deal with assessments. But I don't know if there's any other design component questions that people have.
Councilor McCollum, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, on this map, and there may be a good reason the map isn't really good, but where it says main drain on just before the outlet,
Correct. Yep.
it seems to step in. Is there a reason why it doesn't follow the property line like the rest of them do?
That's where it is. So Mr. Lamers' property, this is right adjacent to the church. The church has a bunch of planted pines, I believe. Mr. Lamers has very large deciduous trees. It's where it is. I'm not recreating it. It was never constructed.
Okay, no, you can't see that from, or you can barely see it now that it's blown up, but I can't blow it up anymore. So I get the reason now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the dash line is indicating that we're incorporating it as part of the drain for future maintenance purposes. We're not proposing construction.
Okay.
So that means in the future, Mr. Jemison, if there's issues, say a tree falls in the drain or there's a blockage of some sort, he has the authority to go remove that obstruction. We're not really proposing excavation. As you get closer to Mr. Lamers' house, the house is very close to the drain. It's essentially all lawn.
Thank you.
Are there any further comments from members of council? Councilor Wainfleet, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have, Mrs. Whiteford had a question that didn't get answered, and I think I know the answer, but if you could just clarify. West of the Mitchner property, there's a house with a pool. Is that all the same owner?
Well, is it not all owned by Mr. Newhouse? So I guess, and I'm sorry if it's incorrect, we try to use the latest mapping we've been provided by the township. So if there's a severance missed, one thing we can't do before the court revision is I can correct that. Essentially, it's just if there is one property missing, my guess is it's been severed in the last, say, number of years, and we can capture that, and I can issue an addendum to page, essentially, I believe it's 8 and 9, and we can just recapture that. That assessment would come out of the new house assessment. So in this case, you know, I can only split the assessment per se, but I believe that's 12. Yeah, so that would come out of Mr. Newhouse's $170. So we can apportion that accordingly, but that would just be an error in the parcel fabric.
Okay,
We can get that corrected.
thank you. I think that was her question, because I think there's actually a new build there
Yeah.
as well that might got missed as well.
Any other further comments from members of council? Seeing none? Okay, thank you. So I have a motion that report DSR 012-2023 regarding the Newhouse Drain Engineering Report for consideration be received, and that a bylaw be given 2 readings to provisionally adopt the Newhouse Drain Engineering Report dated September 4th, 2023, prepared by Sprite Associates Engineering and Architects under Section 4, Chapter D17 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, and that staff be directed to advance the Newhouse Drain to that of the Court of Revision as per Section 46(1) of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, and that Councillor Anderson, Councillor McCullen, and Councillor Van Fleet be appointed as members to the Newhouse Drain Court of Revision, and Mayor Grant be appointed as an alternate member to be tentatively scheduled for November 22nd, 2023 at 4 p.m. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Van Fleet, Councillor McCullen. Any other discussions? Seeing none, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? You in favor? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's okay. That's okay. Opposed? And that is carried. And we're just going to pause for a second to let Councillor Gilmore come back. Okay, we're going to move on to delegations. We have one delegation this evening. Ms. Leslie Farrell is here to make a presentation to council respecting the sale of burial plots at Sensebog Cemetery. Ms. Farrell, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation to council.
Thank you, Mayor Grant. Councilors, through Mayor Grant, I'm here on behalf of my parents who we discovered in the car about over 55 years ago purchased 4 burial plots in the Sensebog Cemetery, which is my mother's family, who, again, have roots to this area. My dad actually, when he came to Canada over 60 years ago, actually just up the road here in Wainfleet, so there's ties to the neighborhood. But they have these 4 plots, and they don't wish to be buried here at the cemetery. So what they're asking is if the township can please purchase them back. But the problem lies in the fact that the actual deeds have gone missing. So between moving and downsizing, some documents have got lost, and it's my understanding that the bylaw states that you need to have the original deeds to sell back the plots to the township. So I guess we're asking for a retrieve of that bylaw so that the township will purchase them back from us. And if I'm not mistaken, the plot numbers are 275 through to 278. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any comments or questions for our delegation from members of council? Councillor Gilmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Mayor, I think that probably we should have Mr. Nan have a discussion with our solicitor and see if we can work out some way to either source the deeds or find out how we can transfer these. Do you have any comments, Richard? I don't know what else we would do.
Through your worship, if that's council wishes, we could definitely look into what like legal aspects we can do, but we would definitely have to come back with an amendment to the bylaw to allow whatever changes that's acceptable. And then once that bylaw amendment is presented to council and approved, then we can actually proceed. But there'll be some stipulations. We'll have to go through the legal process with our lawyer, consulting with the lawyer to see how we can advance this process. But if that's council's wishes, then we can review that and come back with an amending bylaw for whatever needs to meet.
Councilor Gilmore?
Yeah, so bottom line, there is probably a way to fix this. It's going to take a little bit of time, and so we'll get a report back from Richard, and then carry on with the solicitor and be back in touch with you, but it'll be a while.
No worries. My parents are very grateful that you're able to listen to us this evening, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of it, because we do want the plots to go back to somebody in this community. And, they're going to be sitting there and just, anyways, thank you very much.
Councilor McCullen, you want to speak?
No.
Okay, so Councilor Gilmore, that'll be a motion? Yeah, so I just need a seconder. Councilor McClellan, any other discussion? Seeing none, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Okay, we're moving on to our consent agenda. We have 3 items listed on the consent agenda this evening. Those items are ASR 011-2023, respecting the reappointment of auditors. B, the ASR 013-2023, respecting the 2024 interim tax levy bylaw. C, ASR 014-2023, respecting the 2024 borrowing for current expenditures. Are there any items that council wishes to be removed from the consent agenda for discussion? Seeing none. So I have a motion then that the following items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. ASR 011-2023, respecting the reappointment of auditors. ASR 013-2023, respecting the 2024 interim tax levy bylaw. And ASR 014-2023, respecting the 2024 borrowing for current expenditures. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Anderson, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Okay, we're going to move on to staff reports and recommendations. ASR 012/2023, respecting the 2023 year-end projected results report. Mr. Hart, could you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Today in front of you, I have the 2023 year-end projected results report. Essentially, I've worked with senior staff to come up with an estimate of where our finances will be at year-end. I just want to preface that this is preliminary, and it was based on September 30th, 2023 data. But we're looking to have approximately $680,000 in surplus for those various reasons that are listed in the report. You can see here that we have an overview of our capital projects and where they stand in their progress as of September 30th. There are a few projects in surplus due to savings realized. And finally, we have the projected reserves report and where our debt will be, assuming that we go forward with the recommendations and final approvals during the budget process.
Okay, so I have a motion that the Administrative Staff Report ASR 012-2023, respecting the 2023 year-end projected results report, be received as information. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Anderson, any discussion? Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Hart for this report personally, and at the liberty of the rest of the council on their behalf. It's an excellent brief and a wonderful summary. And I think going forward, when we get to our final capital and operating budgets, I think that this information as a preamble is going to be very helpful to us. So thank you very much, Mr. Hart.
Any other comments from council? Councilor Gilmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mary. I would echo those words from Councilor Anderson, and I'm sure my former seatmate to the right, if she's watching, is probably doing a happy dance right now too. She spent 4 years asking for that. So anyway, I appreciate your work. Thank you. And obviously, I'm not saying anything negative towards our treasurer. I know that there's a lot of work that gets done, but we appreciate this report.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, then I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. So moving on to Community and Development Services, CDS 005/2023, respecting the planning service level agreement. Ms. Earl, could you please provide a brief overview of your report?
I'm here. 1 second, just loading the camera. Let me know when can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, I accepted the camera. Hang on 1 second. You think after all this time we'd have the IT figured out? Ta-da! I'm here. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This report is provided to you in response to Bill 23 that received royal assent in November of last year, which proposed significant changes to the Planning Act. Of those changes was the removal of planning responsibilities for several upper-tier municipalities, including the Niagara region. This changes many of the planning functions of the Niagara region that they currently had responsibility for, and those functions will now be downloaded to the local municipalities. At this time, township staff does not know when this change will take effect, as the date for proclamation has not been set. In anticipation of this change, the CAO, myself, and representatives from Niagara region and other local area municipalities have been meeting to discuss the transfer of planning review functions that the region has traditionally performed for us. The region has retained a facilitator and a solicitor to develop a new planning service delivery framework that responds to those provincial changes I'd mentioned. It also looks at expected growth needs across the region and an improved customer service approach. The Service Level Agreement, SLA, has been thoroughly reviewed by the township's solicitor. It sets out services to be provided by the region for the township concerning planning matters. It will replace our current Memorandum of Understanding between the Niagara region, area municipalities, and the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority once the region's planning responsibilities are removed. For services related to the development review function, it's important to note that costs will be covered by the application review fees paid by the developers and applicants. That ensures no impact on the local ratepayer. Township staff support the desire to deliver an effective and efficient planning service to the public. So this SLA will assist the township in providing the expertise and is flexible to offer planning assistance where needed. As such, staff support the SLA and recommend that it's endorsed by Township Council and that the CAO be authorized to execute the planning service level agreement upon the future date of provincial proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Earl. So I have a motion that the Community and Development Services Report CDS 005-2023 be received for information, and that council receive and endorse the planning service level agreement attached between the Township of Wainfleet and the Regional Municipality of Niagara, and that the CAO be authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of the township upon the date of provincial proclamation for the amendments to the Planning Act related to upper tier municipal planning responsibilities. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McCullen? Councilor Anderson, thank you. Is there any discussion? Councilor McCullen, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to get this thing deferred till after the new year. We've got our budget's coming up. We got a lot of work. I can tell you right now, I'm not really happy what the region has done to the town of Wainfleet over the years, what they did on our last official plan. When we tried to clean things up, they threatened to take us to the OMB. The region, we've got Regional Road 45. I know it's not part of planning, but we've had a road that'll be closed. In another month, it'll be closed, 2 years of bridge. They haven't done a bloody thing. And they're talking about 2028 maybe getting it in the budget. There's not a road on the north end of Niagara that was ever closed that long. Let's just have a good, hard look at this in the new year. And we don't have to sign this now, so let's just defer it.
Sorry. So I'll need a seconder for that. Councilor Anderson? Hey. Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion? Oh, we can't. Sorry. Apologize. Okay, then I'll just call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Thank you. Moving on. Okay, we're going to move on to the review of correspondence. C 2023-352, Canadian Federation of University Women, Welland and District, respecting the proclamation and flag raising request. Is there any discussion from this item of correspondence? Seeing none. So can I have a mover and a seconder? To support? Yeah, sure. Councilor McClellan, Councilor Van Fleet. Any other further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Moving on to bylaws, I have a motion that the following bylaws be read and passed this first day of November 2023. Bylaw number 042-2023 being a bylaw to provide for interim tax levies for the year 2024 for the Township of Wainfleet. Bylaw 43-2023 being a bylaw to authorize borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. Bylaw number 44-2023 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2022-2023 being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of the Township of Wainfleet, the conduct of its members, and the calling of its meetings. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Gilmore? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. You can't be a part of that one. All right. Okay. Okay. So I now have a motion that bylaw number 45-2023 being a bylaw to provide for drainage works in the Township of Wainfleet in the region of Niagara, Newhouse Drain, be read a first and second time and be provisionally adopted this first day of November 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Van Fleet? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion from members of council? Seeing none. We don't have any more closed sessions, obviously. There is no more closed session, so we're going to move on to the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council. I have a motion that bylaw number 46-2023, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the actions of the council held at its special joint meeting held on October 16th, 2023, and its regular meeting held on the first day of November 2023, be read and passed this first day of November 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Van Fleet, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. So there being no further business, the meeting will now be adjourned.